So you want me to hit
Yeah, if you want to
record?
record the cloud just as a safety issue.
I got you, man. I got you. Hold on. Let me. All right. Recording to the cloud. All right. Got it. Can't be too careful. We always have to have a backup.
Always. You're talking to a film guy. I get it.
Yeah, there you go. Well, I messed up a couple of times because I didn't record. There was one episode I did, and the guy was really cool. He made a game. It's a card game called Don't Get Stabbed.
Cool.
And I did the interview, and then I realized because of everything going on around me, like someone was texting me and all that, I forgot to hit record. Long story stupid. So he was awesome, and he did it again. I mean, I changed up the questions too. I was like, I got to shoot from the hip now. Like I want to change up the question a little bit.
Did he get pissed off because he thought the questions were better the first time, though?
No. No. Oh, man.
Look, we've all had that experience. You know, I mean, I've done it myself where you've got the camera and you're like, you know, you're confusing the stop and the record, and you know, you go to play back your footage and it's just nothing but like and wave. It's bad.
Oh no.
Solidarity, sir. Solidarity.
There you go.
All right, so if everybody's ready here, I'll do my little intro, and then
Yes, sir.
We'll get into the interview part of the show. Welcome to a podcast from beneath. This week we'll be talking with Erik Myers. He's the writer and director of Butterfly Kisses. Erik, how's it going?
It's going quite well as can be, being that we live in strange and interesting times.
Yes. Well,
I feel like it's a sci-fi movie right
now.
It's kind of going that way.
Yeah. Well, speaking of movies, we're going to start with this is our first question we ask our guests. What's your favorite horror movie?
The Exorcist.
Oh,
it's
man,
tough
yes.
because I've got three films that if you were to say, you know, what were the ones that most influenced me, I would say The Exorcist, the original Nightmare on Elm Street, and American Werewolf in London. And like all three traumatized me as a very small child. But The Exorcist is just, you know, that is a stone cold classic. That's a masterpiece.
I've seen The Exorcist as a kid, but American Werewolf in London messed me up more than The Exorcist did.
Why is that?
It was the scene whenever Jack gets killed, right?
Right.
And he's screaming that this thing is killing me. So he was aware that he was dying. For some reason, that always stuck with me. That's the awareness that you are slowly being eaten alive by a wild animal. Seeing that as a kid on HBO at nighttime.
Yeah, and it's funny because that is so effective, and yet at the same time, everybody bags on, and with good reason. So hear me out before you start laughing. Friday the 13th, Part 4. There is a death scene where the actor Eric Anderson's character is being just brutalized by Jason in the basement. He's just being murdered, and he's screaming out, "He's killing me! He's killing me!" And it's the same thing, but that scene always gets laughs.
Wow.
Yeah, I remember that scene too. And then another good death scene is Dawn of the Dead, 1978, whenever the character played by Tasso is getting his guts ripped open, and he's watching it the whole time, and just the way that guy's screaming just gives me chills every time.
No, that is a really solid observation, and it's funny that you say that because it's so obvious that so many kills in horror films, specifically if we're talking about slashers or sort of things of that ilk, it's all about, you know, the penetration shot, the gore explosion, whatever that is, and the victim drops dead. We don't tend to see that prolonged sequence where the victim is suddenly realizing their impending doom and then living through it for however long or short that might be. So yeah, that's funny because if you asked me in American Werewolf what had scared me the most, that is not what I would have said. But now I know that the next time I watch it, I'm going to be looking at it that way.
Cool.
Could use that money for their vision instead of like, and not to, get me wrong. I mean, half the stuff that comes out through Indiegogo and Kickstarter is not bad, but imagine with just a little bit of those funds, like you said, instead of just dumping it all on superheroes, what
Right.
these people could do. I mean, they could come out with some pretty cool shit. Hold on, let me get
Billy,
there.
can you hear us?
Yes, can you hear
Okay.
me?
Yes, I can.
What's up, man? How you doing?
Hello, how you doing?
Doing quite well. Thanks for having me back.
No problem.
So I've been watching a lot of Transformers. I started drawing again, working on a.
Very cool.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, didn't you ask a question about Transformers on Facebook the other day?
Yeah, like whenever Prime goes from robot to
Yes.
truck, where does the trailer come from? Of course,
It always just-
you topped that question with the Megatron transforming to the gun. Where's his body go?
I always kind of thought, like, as a kid, I was like, okay, so Prime just turns into the front of this truck, and the trailer is something that is like, maybe it's when he turns into his robot form, his bipedal form, the thing just like stays within a certain distance, a certain radius of him. It automatically kind of drives and follows behind him. And when he turns back into the tractor trailer, it's like automatically pulled in or something.
Right.
That was my guess. I was like, that's where that comes from. Now, fucking Megatron turning into like a gun this big, I don't know.
Right.
Yeah, nothing there.
Well, it's even weirder too when like I can't remember his name, but the one that turns into the ambulance. So he'll transform into the ambulance, and then
the medic.
and then the other Autobots can just get inside of him, and I'm like, what?
It's weird. It's real weird.
But I guess it's a cartoon that was made to sell toys. It didn't need to make sense.
Yeah, but if I'm 8 and I'm asking, why it is that Megatron goes from being, 20 feet tall to being small enough that he can fit in Starscream or Soundwave's hand.
Yeah.
But then the inverse was true because I got the toy for Christmas. I was one of those kids who, I really knew exactly what I wanted. One year it was Voltron, and I had to really sauce my parents up for that because it was like $100. And then the next year it was, I need to have Optimus Prime and I need to have Megatron. And in the case of Optimus Prime, it was like a 1-to-1 thing because he just turned into a robot that proportionally would be the size of a robot that was in its Autobot form, the size of a tractor trailer. Megatron, who in the cartoon went from being like 20 feet tall to being able to fit in this dude's hand, as a toy was like this life-size gun that turned into this fucking robot that was like that tall. And it was the opposite problem. You could never have him have a real battle with Prime because they weren't like within the same size ratio. It sucked, man. It was bad stuff.
Now, I guess eventually, I don't know if it was I'm just now in season 2, but eventually he started to turn into a tank, correct? Megatron?
Megatron turns into a laser cannon called Galvatron.
Okay, so that was after he becomes Galvatron. Is when he stopped being the handgun.
Yes, and in the movie, Leonard Nimoy does his voice.
Right, yeah, I knew that. But I couldn't remember. I knew at some point he stopped being a handgun and went to the tank.
Yeah, he becomes that laser cannon. I had him as a toy. He was very super cool as well.
All right, so I'll do my intro. I knew that he had shown you this film, so I'm assuming that was your first time watching it, right?
Yes, that is right. Erik, as I'm sure you know, is a hardcore horror nerd. And when I met him, I was kind of a virgin to the genre. And so he's been taking me through, we did a ton of slashers. We did the Halloween movies. We're currently rewatching The Exorcist again. And he has been on several different shows where he talked about cannibal holocaust. And every time he did, it's sort of considered a foundation of the found footage genre. And yet it was talked about in this very specific way where it was like, it was almost like a do not touch kind of like movie. It was like, unless you're like really prepared for some serious shit, it was like, don't watch this. So for me, I was immediately like, okay, well, obviously I have to watch this, especially if it's sort of a foundational piece in the found footage genre, which is where Erik has made a movie. And I know that Butterfly Kisses sort of pulls from that movie a lot. And so I was like, well, I have to watch it. So we've probably been watching like horror movies for about 2 years now. And so I've just been sort of like the entire time waiting, like, okay, when are we going to watch Cannibal Holocaust? Because I know at some point we kind of have to go there. I feel like I have to have the guts to like do this movie. And so finally here in the 6th month of our lovely pandemic, I was like, okay, I think it's time. We got to watch Cannibal Holocaust. I'm feeling it.
And it was awesome because it took her a long time to work up to that, because yes, she said regularly, this is a movie I feel I need to see. It is a foundation stone of this particular subgenre. And yet, with that being said, there is this mystique around the film. It does have this intense reputation that can perhaps, if not prevent people from seeing it, cause them to delay seeing it. And it's funny because I've seen Cannibal Holocaust probably about, and this says something about my OCD when it comes to rewatches, because I think I can say I've only seen the movie about 10 or 11 times. With that being said, I have never watched it in any of those 10 or 11 times with the same person or persons.
Interesting.
It's always showing it to somebody. Oh, wait a minute. You've never seen Cannibal Holocaust? All right, sit down. We're going to get yourself ready. We're going to watch this movie. And it's always a different person every single time. And I didn't know, frankly, if you would be, being that you have in particular such a big heart for critters.
Yes.
Megan she's a nature girl. She's a hiking girl, and she sees an ant that could possibly get stepped on a path. She will stop and she will help the ant relocate.
It's true.
I'm not even exaggerating. So I'm thinking, I'm like, okay, I think she might have a tough time as a woman with some of the scenes featuring rape and things of that sort. But the actual on-screen killing of critters, I thought that might have been too much for you, but you handled it.
Thank you.
You handled it very well. Like, you weren't squeamish and you weren't oohing and eyeing and curling up into a little ball. You took it. And
so if people are our Patreon, they get to see behind the scenes stuff.
Cool.
With you guys' approval, but
Sure.
they get to hear us bullshit afterwards, or actually or they're going to watch the video carrier listen.
Well, I'm just audio right now because you have to have you can't just upload video straight to Patreon. You got to have a Vimeo account and all that
Those
stuff.
bastards.
So right now it's just audio.
Well,
Another thing I got to subscribe to.
Yeah.
All right.
it's just that when you're, it feels a little inside baseball, but, by that same token, when we talk about, oh, my movie is 10 years old and it's only available on DVD. I mean, my first film is almost 10 years old at this point. And while we shot it in HD, we shot it in HD at 720, and so it's really crazy the way film as a medium with a deliverable has remained throughout most of its lifespan very, very consistent. You shoot on 35 millimeter film, or in some cases 70, in some cases 16, whatever. But you shoot on film, and there is a certain, linear expectation for what technological improvements are going to bring to that medium. But nonetheless, it stays consistent to a certain point. Once we hit digital video, Hollywood, when it started adopting shooting on high definition cameras, you had the growing pains there for the first few years or so. But I think they've kind of come around a corner, and what they're shooting in high definition now looks closer to film, at least, than it ever has. But when you're talking about independent filmmakers, there's been such a fluid quality to what constitutes a film, a finished film, a feature, something that is in release, something that is on either VHS or then DVD or Blu-ray or streaming online. It maybe started out as all independent films were shot 16 millimeter. And then it started turning into shooting on videotape, then shooting on high 8, mini DV, then early HD, and then later on shooting on DSLRs, and now shooting in 4K. That what constitutes an independent film in the year 2020 is in no way representative of 2010 or 2000 or 1990 or however far back you go.
Also, I mean, it really was a point of demarcation when you started with standard definition digital video.
You took it well.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was